afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Virtual Day Trip to Wine Country. I'm Sam Kimball from New York Wine Events. Today, we are going west again. Go west, young man, which is fitting. We will be virtually tasting in California today and actually 4 out of 5 days next week. So we're in the California zone. Today we are headed to Sonoma County, beautiful Sonoma County, to Goldschmidt Vineyards, one of the most prestigious wine producers in the state of California. Goldschmidt's got an awesome portfolio, and their calling card is single vineyard wines, and frankly, great wines. As
Thanks,
you
Sam.
will see momentarily, our guest today has worked at some of the top wineries in California for over 30 years. And he has a long track record of awesome quality selections and also maintained and built a focus on Cabernet Sauvignon along with some great white wines as well. By the way,
thanks for having us on.
Learn all about Goldschmidt Vineyards at goldschmidtvineyards.com. That's goldschmidtvineyards.com. And what you'll learn on the broadcast today also is that Nick and his team have some great offers for us. So listen up when we do the wine tasting. We will provide the details, and we're looking forward to that part. And I'm sure you all are too. Happy Friday, everyone, TGIF. If you have questions during the session, please put them in the Q&A in Zoom, and we will tackle them. And so without further ado, it's my honor today for us to host Nick Goldschmidt from Goldschmidt Vineyards. Nick has not only worked on the Goldschmidt wine portfolio, but also worked on many very well-known names in the wine world, including Cloudy Bay, Terrazas from Argentina, Franciscan Estancia, Ravenswood, Clos du Bois, Mumm, and many, many more. And in the global arena, when we're not on quarantine, this guy's a globetrotter. He's going around the world to places like Mexico, Spain, Argentina, Australia, and his native New Zealand. See if you can detect the accent when you hear him speak. It's such a pleasure. Welcome, Nick. It's an honor having you here on the show today.
Sam, brilliant. I just love, I love the new, whatever the heck we've got going on. And it's a whole new way to meet people like you and talk to your customers and consumers. Fun times, man. Fun times.
We love that. And the fact of the matter is, like, I'm here with an aerial shot over one of your vineyards. What on earth do you have behind you?
I have a tape measure. It's part of the joke. I'm actually currently 4 meters down a soil pit. That's where I am. And that's the measure. You can see there's the 2 meter line. It's, you know, the rest of the world has moved on. It's metric. It's time for metric. It's time for us to move on. And so, you know, I'm down the soil pit here. We want to see how where the stones are, where the roots go. You can see the roots sort of showing up there. That's a good indication. Then what we do is we get a knife and we scratch the root and we figure out if it's white or red. If it's white, the root means that it's got good oxygen transfer going on with the water, and if it's red, it means that it's in a quagmire and it's not doing very much. It's too saturated. So anyway, I just thought I'd throw that up there for something.
I think that's awesome. This is the first pure shot of dirt and earth that we've seen on Virtual Day Trip to Wine Country. So awesome. Good on you. And listen, the vine's got to start somewhere, right?
That indeed, and certainly it's getting. You know, when we got in the industry, Sam, it was very different to the way it is today. When I got in the industry, my first vintage, of course, was, you know, before you were born, 1982. And, you know, we couldn't buy plants like you do today. You know, you just go down to the nursery and you can buy a plant. Well, in those days, we couldn't. And we would have to make the plants ourselves. And so we would have, and this is true today, you have a rootstock and we have the scion, SCION, which goes on top. This is Vitis vinifera, this is Cab, Chard, Merlot, everything that you know. Yeah. And the rootstock that we used was AXR1. And we had good compatibility. But the problem was that we got phylloxera, which is a little insect in 1989, 1990, and destroyed the rootstocks. So starting at that point, we created these things called clones and nurseries, and now we can buy plants very easily. The problem is they're all tasting the same. And so my job in life is to find vineyards that were never replanted, and I work only with mass selections and field selections rather than the clones that most people consume or plant today.
That's so interesting. So you're working with the purists of the rootstock and the vines in that sense, because they haven't been replanted and they're not redone.
Yeah, no, that's true. And so I look for some of these vineyards. They have to be on very special soils. It's funny, I got a soil photo. One of those is this Goldridge sandy loam, which is it's like a talcum powder soil, so it has no organic matter in the Russian River. So the phylloxera can't live in there. And so AXR1, and one of the wines we'll talk about today, the Singing Tree Chardonnay, is on that soil, planted in the 70s on AXR1, which is the rootstock that no longer is viable. And here we are today. We're still making wine from it, low yields, obviously, but really, really unique characters and quite different to the Chardonnays that most people are buying today, because all of the vineyards are cloned and ours are not.
That's awesome. So despite your expansive experience and track record, we'll be talking about and tasting today your own wines from the Goldschmidt portfolio. How did Goldschmidt Vineyards and your journey doing your own wine collection get started?
Well, that's in a nutshell. My father went out on his own when he was 26, and he was an engineer. And I always wondered what it would be like if I went out on my own. And I waited and I waited. I spent 25 years in a corporate world. Kept getting bought and sold. I only ever had 2 jobs, but just kept getting bought and sold. And so in 2008, April 1st, the economy was not in its good condition. April Fool's Day, I went out on my own. And I was a little bit older, obviously, than my father was. But if I didn't give it a go then, I would have been consumed back into one of the corporate jobs. And so I decided to go to my own. But what I really wanted to do was protect and nurture a lot of these vineyards that were being let go from the large corporations of the world. So a lot of these small independent growers that were getting gobbled up could no longer find a route to market or a route to wineries. So a lot of these guys contacted me, and we managed to secure a lot of small individual independent vineyards around Oakville and Alexander Valley. And today I continue to work with those and help those growers along, and they help me just as well, you know.
Well, I want to prompt our audience to ask any questions that they may have about sustainability, about purity of fruit and grapes. In talking to Nick and getting ready for today's show, I've been really impressed and taken by how much he knows about all kinds of things related to how things grow, not just grapes, but other produce. And frankly, when we live in a world that prizes authenticity and purity and you know, getting away from man-made additives and chemicals. So if anybody's got questions on that front, whether it's about the nature of the wines that Goldschmidt makes or biodynamic or any of that stuff, Nick can answer. So when you started with Goldschmidt Vineyards, was there a particular direction or strategy about what kinds of wines you really wanted to make? And were you good? Did you say, listen, let's focus on these varietals? What was the direction initially? And how's that evolved over the last 12 years?
Wow, it's evolved in all sorts of ways. But the very first thing that I wanted to do was, because of my global experience, because I don't know, I got to work with the best winemakers in the world. It was amazing, man. It was an amazing job, you know, working with Louis Vuitton and then working with Constellation and then working with Allied Domecq and Jim Beam. And so I came away with this idea, like, okay, why doesn't somebody, like, when you think Sauvignon Blanc, Marlborough, when you think Shiraz, McLaren Vale, Australia, when you think Malbec, Uco Valley, Argentina, and when you think Cabernet, California. And so we created a wine called Forefathers, and this was the first wine that we ever released. I don't know how I do it on the virtual thing.
Yeah, you can move it around a little bit. Oh, look at that. Yeah.
So that's the Forefathers label, and this is a pair of boots that I used to wear when I walked around my vineyard. Well, you get the idea. And on the label itself is my constitution that when I became an American, when I became a goddamn American, I wrote my own constitution about sustainability, environmentally friendly farming, fish-friendly farming. And then on the bottom, I stole John Hancock's signature and changed it to my own. And we did these things. They were the best single vineyard wines that I knew. One from Australia, Marlborough, McLaren, and Cabernet from California. And so from there it evolved. And the second wine I wanted to do was, of course, under my own name. So Goldschmidt became that. And so this today is the Goldschmidt wine.
That's the flagship.
That's one of the 5 flagships that we make. And then everything went quiet until 2008 when I went out on my own. And the next step was really to get into the family business. And I have 5 children, and I'd always told my children about when we lived in Chile back in the 80s. My wife and I were living in Chile back in the 80s, and Pinochet was an interesting chap. You probably have heard of Pinochet.
Sure.
He was a dictator. Sure. And one of the ways he controlled us was he would cut off food, he would cut off oil, or he'd cut off power, electricity. And it's very hard to make wine without electricity. And so we learned how to do that. And I was telling my children, yeah, we can make wine without power. So in the year 2000, the 7 of us, we went out and we hand harvested half a ton of grapes. We hand destemmed it, which took 2 days. The girls did the pigeage, the boys did the punch down, then we basket pressed, hand basket pressed it. We hand pumped it into the barrel. We did put the barrel in a warehouse because I wasn't completely crazy. And then we made a wine called 5 Gold Hands Unplugged. And because of that, the kids wanted to get more involved. And so today I make a wine with my 3 daughters, each Chelsea Merlot, Katherine Cabernet, and Hilary Oakville Cabernet as well. And so it's become a family project, and it's really interesting, the whole thing about birth order and what they like to drink and how they like to taste. It's a very cool and interesting project.
No, that's awesome. So you really that direction though, starting with those grapes in those areas was really cool. And you're not entirely an estate winery. You're about half and half. You source your grapes from some other vineyards that you work with those growers, and then you have about half of the portfolio is your own grapes making the wines.
Correct.
What's the difference? I mean, how do you? Is there a difference? Was there a sort of a master plan there, or is that just how it kind of maps out when you're looking for fruit?
It kind of mapped out that way. As I said, I really wanted to look after some of these independent growers that were being cast aside. And so there's a couple of things. I'm not a shotgun blast. I have to know the guy, and most of these vineyards I've been working on since the 90s. I think it was funny that the Wine Enthusiast came out and wrote an article of the 40 best winemakers under 40 years old. I'm waiting for the article of the 50 best winemakers over 50 years old, because, history is a really important thing. When someone says to me, "Oh, how long is your wine going to last for?" It's like, are you crazy? I mean, some of these winemakers haven't even made wine for 10 years, let alone 15 from the same vineyard, or 30 in my case, like Katherine. I've been making 30, I've made 31 vintages from one vineyard. And so I know how that wine is going to behave. I know I'm very fussy about the way wines look, because when the wines age, they go purple, red, brown, orange. And I want to make sure my wines go purple and red. They don't go brown or orange. And you'll never see, crusty stuff here on the side of the bottle, especially within 30 years, maybe after 30 years, yeah. But I want to hold that wine stable in a non-invasive processing and have the wine taste young and fresh and fruity. In fact, we just had, my daughter just turned 18, Hilary just turned 18, and we opened a bottle of 2002 forefathers Cabernet the other night. Purple, still purple.
That's
18
great.
years old and it's still purple.
That's awesome. Now, is it hard to, both from your own vineyards, but also working with other growers, is it hard to maintain the level of purity and staying away from the herbicides and some of the things that you do? Or has that become a trend that's more and more widely adopted?
Well, that's a tough question, Sam. Man.
That's why I'm here.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Yeah, it's hard. I mean, most of these guys that I'm working with are older than me. So evolving into new processes or new ideas, new concepts, they get the basics, but I see it becoming more and more. I have to show them what I'm doing in my own vineyard to prove that it can happen, so that they can do it in their vineyard.
Right.
Because there's an expense. Not using herbicide is expensive.
Right.
It's easy. It's easy to strip spray. It's easy to spur prune. Where when you prune, you have two buds. I don't like spur pruning. I like cane pruning, where we lay 1-year-old cane. You have one bud. You have much more separation of the shoots. It takes longer to prune though, but the longevity of the vine is better because we don't have trunk diseases like Utiper and corky bark and some of these other diseases that we get. And we have more, there's less and less old vineyards around these days. And I'm a big fan of keeping these old vineyards alive and sustainable.
Got it. Now, let's do a little quick tour and then we can get into tasting some wines. Tell us a little bit about your location. Obviously, everyone's on quarantine now and things are not open as normal, but you run a tasting room. You've got a fabulous production facility. I put that up in my background here with tanks and barrels. And how many cases of wine do you make a year at Goldschmidt?
Both of them. We just make two.
Two, okay. That's good.
And that's Claudia in the background. She's my assistant winemaker. She's checking my work. If you move your head, and I'm there too. Okay, I'm there too. She's checking my work because I like to do I like to drive my own tractors and I like to rack my own barrels. So on my top wines for sure. And so I'm small enough to be able to do that. So the Goldschmidt wines and the forefathers wines, I'm the only one, or Claudia and I are the only ones that touch those wines. When it comes to Katherine and Chelsea and Hilary, they're a little bit bigger in volume. So we do more use of pumps rather than these things we rack using gas. So we actually don't use any pumping at all. It's all basically gravity fed. So we make about 20,000 cases total between all of them. But the Katherine Cabernet is the big monster for us.
That's the larger volume. Got it. Okay. And then you this is a couple of different shots of vineyards. I mean, it looks like this is the fog is trying to burn off there. And what part of your area and vineyard is that?
Well, so this is in Alexander Valley. That vineyard to the left is not me. That's because that's a unilateral. This is us here on this side. This is a bilateral. This is a bilateral cordon, and this is a unilateral. I don't like laying one cane out. It was just a nice view of the fog in the morning. So the difference between the two appellations that I work in California. So in Alexander Valley, the fog, the winds in the afternoon. So in the evenings, we get these strong winds from the coast, and that brings the fog in. We have two gaps, one down in Petaluma, which they call the Petaluma Gap that rolls into the Russian River, and then one up where we are, which is Skaggs Springs, and there's a gap there, and we get the fog to come in. So when I wake up in the morning in the Alexander Valley, fog. When I wake up in the Napa Valley, no fog, because the Napa Valley is warmer than the Alexander Valley for an obvious reason. We have Mount St. Helena. The sun shines on Mount St. Helena, and that's what sucks the fog up off San Francisco Bay. So Yountville to the south is colder than Oakville, colder than Rutherford, so it takes a long time for the fog to work its way up. So quite different systems, and hence that's why Napa Valley is more toasty than the Alexander Valley. So it depends on the style of wine. So Napa Valley is going to give you more black fruit, higher alcohol. Alexander Valley is going to give you fresher, more red fruit, better acidity. So when I drink Cabernets, I prefer to drink wines with better acidity when I'm eating, and then I drink the wines with the higher alcohol with cheese. I'm a big cheese fan. So I do that afterwards, you know.
That's interesting. So you would take a really big, high alcohol content Zinfandel or Cabernet, and you would pair it with cheese, and whereas you feel like there's a versatility of food pairing with the Alexander Valley, the Sonoma side, where you're getting that a little bit more acidity, a little bit less alcohol.
Yes, and here's the problem. My palate's been burnt out. I've tried, you know, when I'm consulting, I do 200-300 wines a day, you know, and I do it for, you know, 6 weeks straight, whatever. So my palate's been thrashed. So for me, I can, you know, Sam, I can sell you 1 glass, but selling you 2 glasses is difficult. So I want to make a wine that when you drink it, you go, damn, am I hungry or thirsty? And that's the sensation I really want to get. And with good, I mean, we always think about Sauvignon Blanc, and that's why, you know, we're gonna talk about the Boulder Bank here a little bit. I mean, that wine is totally, damn it, I got to have a second glass. But when you think about Cabernet, people don't think about Cabernet like that. They think Cabernet, that's what I'm going to eat with a steak, or that's no, because you don't only eat steaks. You also eat vegetables and other salads and other condiments, and you need that brightness. And remember, grape is a fruit. We're trying to sell fruit here. We're not trying to sell alcohol and tannin, and we want these wines to be, damn it, you know, that's Cabernet. That's Merlot. I love that.
That's a really interesting point you made earlier about, am I hungry or am I thirsty? Because I relate to that. There's certain wines where I will have a glass and I will just experience that, and it's enough. There's so much there. And then there's others that are spectacular and lovely, but there's a drinkability where you're saying, I'm thirsty. I want another glass of that. And I think that's an interesting way of framing it. Well, speaking of which, can we jump into the Boulder Bank, the Sauvignon Blanc?
Yeah, sure. I've got a little map here. Can I show you that? Can I share my
absolutely.
screen?
So for everybody watching, this is a wine from Nick's native New Zealand. And so we've been talking about California, but you do have some wine that you make that's Marlborough.
Looks like I got dumped off. Hang on, I'll just.
Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. So anyway, this first wine is a Sauvignon Blanc.
All right, I can't do
it. Was the plan here to make this a classic? What happened?
So this is a white screen. So this is what New Zealand looks like. Okay, it's a big Y. So this is Auckland, which is the big city. I'm from up here, which is Mangawhai, and the vineyards that we have are down here. This is in Marlborough. Okay, so what we look at is this area. These are what we call the Southern Alps. So these Alps run up and down, and then across here we have these things called the Wither Hills that run across the valley, and the glaciers came off these Wither Hills, and this is what we call the Brancott. The Wairau River flows along the bottom to the coast. This coast, so we're talking about down here now, this coast is called Cloudy Bay. This is the Wairau River. So these vineyards, this area is what we call the Brancott. These are the glacial soils, and then these soils here are called the Rapara, which are the river soils. So the vineyard that you're going to taste comes from right here near the river. This is the Richmond Range here, the Wither Hills Range here, and the Alps. So this area has its own little microclimate because it's completely protected. So we don't have a lot of rainfall or anything like that, and that's the beauty of this little area here. So the wine
awesome. So, and a lot of our viewers and audience may know of Cloudy Bay. Are we going to be trying a wine now that's similar to that because it's proximate in geography, or is it just diametrically different?
It's going to be fairly similar because this is a very, I can't believe I can't get my maps up. It's a very, it's an area called the Golden Mile. So in Marlborough, it's very easy to get around. There's 4 roads that run east-west. Renwick Road, Old Renwick, New Renwick, and Middle Renwick, and Rapara. So, but there's plenty of roads that run north-south. So if you're driving north up Jackson's Road towards Rapara Road, which is the furthest north, you've got Cloudy Bay on your right, you've got Alan Scott on your left, you hit Rapara Road, you turn left, and that's Paratai, which is Martua's very famous vineyard. You may remember it's got a whale fin on the label. And then the next vineyard is called Stoneleigh. Stoneleigh, hard to reproduce Stoneleigh, a very, very special wine from a very big company called Brancott or Montana, but Stoneleigh is an impeccable vineyard. And then we're the next vineyard. And this is an area called the Golden Mile. It's the primo area of what Marlborough is. There's 2 things though that I do differently, Sam. Number 1, I don't sell my Sauvignon Blanc to the British. Because the British always want to, well, firstly, you know, look at what they eat, you know. So we eat Mediterranean food in the US, and the British buy more Sauvignon Blanc than Americans. And the British want to have Sauvignon Blanc that does this. You know, they've been drinking New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc for a lot longer. So you get this very tight acidity and leanness, and sometimes, you know, there's so much acid you're crying. I don't want to do that because we eat Mediterranean food. So I make my...
Goes with all that heavy British cuisine.
Yeah, fish and chips, mate. When was the last time you had fish and chips? With lots of ketchup, lots of sugar.
Yeah.
So what we do is we have that same sensation, but because of a technique that we do in the juice stage, believe it or not, we get a little bit more texture. So when you drink this Boulder Bank wine, you're going to get the brightness and the creaminess, but you're also going to get a little bit more of this textural element right on the back of the palate. And
all right, so I'm gonna, for everybody who's watching, I'm gonna put the Boulder Bay bottle up next to me on the screen there. That's the right one, right, Nick? That's the new label.
That's the. I don't know where you got that other label from. Okay, so on the label, it's called Boulder Bank. The name of the vineyard is called Fitzroy. So that's the second thing. It's a single vineyard. You don't get many single vineyard Sauvignon Blancs in being sold here in the US.
Right. So again, for our audience, one of the things that you guys do, your calling card is single vineyard wines. So here we go, single vineyard.
Yeah, so it's single vineyard, and then the yellow and stony thing that you see looking at the label, the yellow piece is actually flax. So the Maori are very strong. They're our indigenous race, and in New Zealand, every child now has to learn how to speak Maori. We have a lot of television stations in Maori. The courts are in Maori. They have half the fishing rights. They don't pay taxes, and we've really celebrated that culture as part of what New Zealand is, and rightly so. So as a point there, that flax, which is what the Maori used to wear as clothing, that's what's represented on the label there, and then the stones are obviously from the vineyard.
Got it. Awesome. All right, let's check it out. Do you have a glass ready there?
Well, I actually drinking the Cabernet, but
well, pour it out.
Oh, yeah, I've got a glass right here.
Give us the tasting notes on the Sauvignon Blanc. Don't, come back soon.
Yeah,
and,
I'll be right there. Just take a glass out of the rack.
Excellent, excellent.
I have that right here.
Here we go.
Hey, listen to this. Listen to this.
Twist top. Love that.
Oh, hear that. Oh, that sounds good. The screw cap.
People, it's 5:28 on the East Coast. We're getting there. Look at that.
Screw caps. There's two screw caps though. You want to make sure what you got. See, this one's nice and shiny. That's called a tin cap. If it's white on the inside, that's called Cyrenax, and Cyrenax acts like a cork. But this, I wanted to complete. My whole room smells of Sauvignon Blanc already.
Excellent. We love that.
So anyway, let's check it out. So we get a little bit of the first thing that because there's three types of Sauvignon Blancs in New Zealand. So we're just going to talk about this one. This is not the extreme. This is not the super high green grassy asparagus. I don't like that. This is a little bit more passion fruit and melon. So high-end warm fruit is like pineapple. So pineapple, melon, stone fruit like peaches and nectarine, pip fruit, citrus and grassy. Most New Zealand Sauvignon Blancs are down in that citry grassy. We come up a note.
Yep.
We come up a level to this melon, subtropical passion fruit. So
a little more nuance, a little more nuance.
A little bit more American.
Oh, well, no, I like the grass, you know, sue me, but I don't mind the asparagus. I like them all.
Well, you certainly, I mean, I'm not saying this is no grassy. I mean, this is still obviously, I mean, if I poured this against a Russian River Sauvignon Blanc or a Washington State Sauvignon Blanc, you shouldn't grow Sauvignon Blanc in Napa, it's too hot. But you're not going to mistake this from not being New Zealand. Wow. And so you just get this like, damn, that brought me back to life. If you drink this 5 o'clock at night, you go, man, my day wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
And suddenly my palate is nice and sensitive, you know? So I like that. Michael,
I will tell you and everyone watching, I'm keeping an eye out the window, and I noticed about 5 minutes ago the FedEx truck pulled up here where I'm staying in Long Island, and the Goldschmidt delivery came with the Boulder Bay. So guess what we're having with dinner tonight?
Well, you better run down and get it. You better go down and open it up.
I'd have to abandon the show. That's awesome. All right. So and then in an interesting transition, the next wine we move to is your Singing Tree Russian River Chardonnay, which is a totally different banana than where we just been with the Sauvignon Blanc.
That's a great line. So the videos I was going to show you is the reason why we called it Singing Tree is that we live in Dry Creek and we live on the Dry Creek River. Dry Creek River flows into the Russian River. So what we named it Singing Tree because in November, December, when we're all like hanging out because the vintage is over, you wouldn't believe how noisy the birds are. They squawk like crazy. And we got these massive videos of these thousands of birds just circling and squawking, and that's where the name comes from, Singing Tree.
Singing Tree.
So we can't kill birds in California. In New Zealand, the forefathers Sauvignon Blanc that I make, the other one that's a little bit more subtropical, we put the bird that we have down there is called a waxeye. Now we're allowed to kill waxeyes because they eat grapes, but in California we're not allowed to shoot birds. So anyway, this is where the name came from. But the vineyard.
I'll write a strong letter to Gavin Newsom for you.
But the vineyard is incredible. It's planted in the 70s, and as I said, it's on this gold rich sandy loam, this powdery soil, and so the phylloxera can't live in it. And this vineyard is super old. You wouldn't believe these vines. You know, we talk about old vine Zinfandel. Sometimes we talk about old vine Cabernet, but we never talk about old vine Chardonnay. And this is old vine Chardonnay, and the yield is super low. This has got to be the best value Russian River Chardonnay on the market. There's no one selling. What's
the price point on this Chardonnay?
Well, you can see it anywhere between, you know, because America's got funny rules depending on which state you live in, but it can be anywhere between $16 to $25.
Wow. And what is it? Because we're going to put up an offer from Goldschmidt Vineyards directly shortly. What is it from the website? And then I know Karen has organized a discount for us.
Yeah, no. Normally, if you were to go buy this in retail, it's going to be 22 to 25.
Right.
So it's going to be to find it at that lower price, you're going to have to buy, you know, cases worth, like they do the discounts down here and stuff like that.
Well, spoiler alert. Karen, who works with you, has organized a 30% discount, so that's pretty amazing. Yeah.
She didn't run it by me.
Yeah, she didn't run it by you. She told me she was a little nervous about it, but I told her go ahead.
What do you mean we're not shooting birds? Okay, so what's unique about it? So, as I explained earlier, this is no clone. So when you get a cluster of Chardonnay, you have this long, you get the cluster of Chardonnay. Now, in a clonal Chardonnay, all the berries are the same size. They're all really big and they're even. On a mass selection or field selection, which is what we're talking about, and this is called the S-E-E selection. So high-end pineapple mass selections were called Spring Mountain Rude. They were pineapple, and C was the melon, which is what we're talking about here. Wente was a little bit more stone fruity, etc. Calera, Mount Eden, whatever. What this wine is, so when you get it, it's going to be, you're going to get that melon rind, that melon skin character, and you're going to get a little bit more pungent, a little bit more lift, okay? Really unique, not many wines that do this naturally. And as a result, we're reducing the amount of wood that we use on the wine, and we're going more and more concrete. I mean, back in 82, that's all we ever used was concrete. The pendulum just does this, people, oh, concrete's cool, let's go over there. Barrels are cool, let's go over there. Well, we've been coming back to concrete for a little while.
So for the pedestrians among us, including me, this is a Chardonnay that is fermented in steel tanks, but then is it aged in oak?
No. So what we do is we settle it in stainless steel. So after we press, you separate the juice from the skins. So now we're sitting in a stainless steel tank. We chill the tank to settle the bottoms, to settle it out, okay? And then, depending on what we want to do, because we are native ferment or wild ferment, we then rack into concrete or we rack into barrel, and then we let the wine begin fermenting on its own.
Got it.
If you were an inoculated winery, you would go into another stainless tank, warm the juice up, add the yeast, and then go to barrel.
That's the secondary fermentation.
No, the secondary fermentation is malolactic fermentation.
Okay.
No, it's just there's just two ways to do primary fermentation. So primary fermentation, you either ferment with Saccharomyces, which is a yeast, or Baianus. Those are the two yeasts that we use. Or you use native yeast, because we know we have yeast on us right here. So we choose to do that natively, and meaning that the yeast actually come in on the skin of the grape. So it's very hands-off. We don't touch this thing at all.
So this is going to be a pretty clean Chardonnay. It's not going to have as much of that vanilla and butter.
No vanilla, but it's going to be a little bit more complex than that, because the other thing that this is risky business. The other thing that people do is, and this, when I say people, I mean larger wineries where we can't take risks. We add nutrients for the yeast, because yeast need a lot. There's three nutrients that we look for: nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus. And nitrogen is very important for yeast. So we add ammonia or some other yeast nutrients, thiamine, which is a big nutrient, nitrogen fixer. And so the yeast eat that. So what we do is, I don't want these yeast to like overwork, like, power on through and ferment these the wine quickly. So having a native ferment is one way to do it. We slow down. And then secondly, we don't add any yeast food. The risk of running into not adding yeast food is the yeast go into stress because they don't have enough to eat, and yet they're consuming sugar, because that's what they do. They're producing alcohol, and alcohol is actually toxic to yeast. They actually kill themselves by producing too much sugar, too much alcohol. But by not giving them any food, they go into stress. And the way we measure stress in a wine, and you'll see this in this, I'm going to let you on a little secret. So the way I get complexity is, there's three levels of what we call reduction or negative stuff. So the first level, which large corporation wineries would never let me do, is, when you go to the beach and the ocean washes onto the sand, and as the water washes out, you smell that wet sand. Okay, that's a breakdown. That's a lot of ammonia that's being released. It's a reduction character. That's what this wine will smell like. When you smell that wine, you're going to get that. You're going to get the fruit, of course, but you're going to get this little bit of background noise, which is going, hey, dude, what is that? What am I smelling? And that's what you got to create conversation when you drink wine. I mean, this is a food, we want to we talk about food and then we talk about wine. I mean, it's a conversation piece. It's part of the dinner. It's part of who we are at dinner. Okay, the next level up is egg, which you know what a rotten egg smells like.
Yeah.
And then the next level up is onion. So it goes beach, egg, onion. Now, some people celebrate the eggy character, but to me, there's a fine line between, is the wine complex or is it reduced? So this is why I seek this ocean type smell. It's a background noise. It's not obvious. So when you smell this wine, you're going to get graphite and mineral characters, which is classic for concrete ferment. But in the background, you'll also get a little bit of this, like, hey, what is that character? And that's what I like.
Got it. Awesome. All right, should we move to the Cabernets?
Yeah, so we have, in fact, you got a photo there of the children somewhere, but
which one? Well, let's show a photo of the kids, but which Cabernet are we going to first?
we're going to go to Katherine.
All right, so I think this is the gang, yeah?
Yeah, so if you move your head for a second, okay, you got all five. So this is Katherine, this is Royce.
Yep.
These guys are twins. That's Hilary, and that's Luke. Believe it or not, Luke's actually a winemaker. Amazing resume. And this is Chelsea. She's 28 and Hilary's 18. So that's my front yard. And this is part of the process every year of getting the kids involved. And so remember I told you the story about making the first barrel of wine back in 2000. So in 2003, Chelsea wanted to get involved. We're not talking about Chelsea today, but I happen to have one here. But oh, you have the Katherine up there. So when Chelsea was 2, I traced around her head, and then she colored it in, and that's where the label comes from.
There you go.
So it's a family project. We've upgraded the labels a little bit recently. We've actually given the children some hair. So these are new labels.
I like it.
Because they're a little bit older. And you'll notice we don't have the lineup in front of you, but Katherine is the middle child. Middle children. I don't know how many middle children are watching us today, but
well, one of them is watching right here. That's me.
Well, you guys are always the center of attention.
But we try.
So I'm a instant denial. You're so middle child. So anyway, there's a long story about how I came to this whole conclusion. But Chelsea and Hilary face the other direction, and Kate faces the other way. Kate faces to the right, because middle children are. This is a firstborn speaking.
Yeah.
Middle children are liars, manipulators, and bullshit artists. And I saw this with my brother. Penultimate salesman. Fantastic. Nothing ever sticks. Us firstborns, I had to learn how to do this. Like you middle children, you're a natural at this. You are natural at being on Zoom, entertaining, center of attention.
Calling me a bullshit artist?
Well, you take it any way you want. Maybe a manipulator. I'm not sure. Either way. But
I'll take manipulator. I like that better.
Us firstborns, I had to learn how to do this. So I went to classes on public speaking and how to look at people in the eye. But for middle children, it's natural. You can get up, and I can see this in you, Sam. I mean, you are natural at this. You're good at this. You can move the conversation any direction you want. You put on that smile. I mean, you're like, great. You are the perfect host for something like this.
We gotta, otherwise nobody pays attention to us. So we have to,
That's a middle child statement right there.
If you don't stand up and sing for your supper, then nothing's happening.
Exactly. In the meantime, us firstborns were shoved in the corner.
Or you're meant to be dutiful and always taking care of everything and being responsible and
So how many siblings have you got? 2 or 4?
I've got an older brother and a younger sister, and I'm right in the middle. I'm probably the quintessential middle child.
See, you identify with it. There are books written on this thing. I don't believe in star sign, but I totally believe in birth order.
I think it's right.
I see it in my children, man. It's amazing. Like, who's going to do a PhD in my family? Well, the firstborn.
Yeah.
you know.
Well, they see everything through. They always stick with it, and
But the last points are always really interesting. And
they tend at least in my experience, they tend to be the straw that stirs the drink.
yeah, nothing sticks to the last point. But yeah, anyway, so Katherine, this vineyard used to be Simi Reserve Cabernet. So back in 1990, when I started at Simi, this fruit went into the Reserve Cabernet that sold for $75. So I've known this vineyard for a really super long time. The vineyard is obviously really old as well. Again, we're talking about an old vine Cabernet mass selection. This is called the Jenkins. Well, we have two.
And which valley is this in, just for the uninitiated?
This is in the Alexander Valley. So the Alexander Valley looks like an upside down Y. So the top of the valley is Cloverdale. The middle of the valley is Geyserville. And the south is Fitch Mountain. And Fitch Mountain blocked the Russian River. And so that's why it's now a Y.
And we're in Sonoma County?
We're in Sonoma County.
We're in Sonoma. Yep.
And we're 1 hour north of the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yep.
So Healdsburg, we have 220 wineries, 38 restaurants when they're open, and we have 4 appellations: Chalk Hill, Russian River, Alexander Valley, and Dry Creek, all meet in Healdsburg. So it's a fantastic place to come visit.
Yeah, so, that's amazing. We should call that out, Nick. I mean, for those of us who are East Coasters, and when things get back to normal, you got to get out there. And I mean, did you say 220 wineries?
With the Healdsburg address, yeah.
It's just incredible. That's amazing.
So is this wine.
Well, I'm glad you're enjoying that.
I'm a glass ahead.
So what's the deal? We're tasting 2 Cabernet Sauvignon here, and obviously, look, California is famous for Cabernet Sauvignon. What is it about the Katherine that would be sort of the calling card versus, we're going to talk about the Hilary in a minute?
Yeah, so Katherine, which you've got on the screen, is, as I said, Alexander Valley, and this vineyard it's a valley. So the sun comes up in the east and sets in the west. So where we want to be is, we want to be east-facing slope. We want morning sun. We do not want afternoon sun, because afternoon sun is too hot. And too much of the Alexander Valley, about 20% of the Alexander Valley is afternoon sun. The rest is morning sun. But the problem is, the morning sun vineyards are very steep. And in California, we can't plant when it's over 15% slope. So we have to be grandfathered in. So this vineyard is not a steep vineyard. We have steeper vineyards over 30%, but this one's around about 15% slope. So we get the morning sun, and because it's a mass selection, we have very small berries. So your skin to pulp ratio is very high. So immediately, when you get this wine, it's purple, and it looks vibrant, and that's what I'm trying to achieve. When you think of Alexander, if you want to put in a nutshell what an Alexander Valley looks like, it's going to be red fruit, as I said a little bit earlier. So it's going to be red fruit. So your high end is going to be red cherry, black peach, blueberry, that spectrum, and with good acidity, nice and bright. So that's what we try to accentuate in the wine.
And what before we move on to the next one, what would be a good pairing for the Katherine Cabernet Sauvignon?
Well, Katherine is just, for me, okay, because I'm a no carb guy. Well, I eat very few carbs, because believe it or not, when I learned this in Argentina, I've been working in Argentina for so long, we eat amazing meat and we eat arugula. That's it. Steak and arugula every night. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So, but the wines, we talk about, it's so complicated. Wine is so complicated. Well, I make it complicated. So when we're there in Argentina, we're drinking Malbec, but I don't want to drink just any Malbec. I don't want to drink Malbec from the famous areas of Vistalba, Luján, La Lunta, Gralo, Ugateche, Guataluri. I don't want to drink those Malbecs. They're the Central Valley. They're the expensive ones. That's downtown Mendoza. They're fleshy. They're ripe. They're the Napa Valley of the Malbecs. What I want to drink is the Malbec that's grown at 2,000, sorry, in feet, 4,000 feet, 4,500 feet. These vineyards are cold, man. So when you're in the Andes, when you make wines from these, and we make a wine called Chakras, which is the name of the town in Mendoza. It's you smell this wine, you go, man, red fruit, red cherry, and then you drink this wine, it's just fleshy and rich and vibrant, and you get that from cool climate. And I think the future today is east facing, north, south, or high altitude, because today too many people drink wines that, it's easy to get to. It's Highway 29, it's Highway 101. I mean, that stuff's been done. We got to find things that are interesting and vibrant, and most of Alexander Valley has been undiscovered. And I feel privileged, really, that I fell into Alexander Valley and Healdsburg, because I was living in Napa Valley at the beginning. But I fell into this place, and there's these areas and these small little tucked away little vineyards. It's way more hilly here. I mean, if you fly into Napa Valley, it's just a big flat valley with a couple of bumps in it. When you fly into Alexander Valley, there's knolls everywhere, the little bumps. There's a lot more differences in earth, and it's a totally unrelated. And I would seriously recommend anyone who's watching this that if you're uncertain when you walk into a retail store, try an Alexander Valley.
Yeah, I agree. There's some great wines. All right, so should we move on to the Hilary?
Very good. Let's just see one more time if I can exit the screen. No, it won't let me.
And what's the retail what's the retail price for the Katherine?
The Katherine is going to be about $25, $28.
Okay.
Okay, I've got it. Believe it or not, I got it. Can I share a screen?
Sure.
So I'm going to show you, it's going to take me a second here, but I'm going to show you of where the Hilary is, where this vineyard is. So just give me a second to load this. So this is this is Highway 29, and this is this is Oakville Cross. Okay, you know where we are, Highway 29. That's Mondavi. That's Nickel and Nickel. This is Opus, and that's Hilary.
Right. So this is Napa Valley, yeah.
Yeah, so the Hilary, we're talking about Hilary now. So I'm going to show you a quick little video of, hang on. I need to just share my computer sound.
Vineyard, and that's Hilary down there at that end, and there's Opus. Beautiful.
It's just, I'll just run it one more time.
Right there is the beautiful Nickel Winery and their vineyard, and that's Hilary down there at that end, and there's Opus. Beautiful Opus out here in the Oakville, getting ready to pick Hilary tomorrow. Cabernet Sauvignon, Oakville, Napa Valley.
So we're in primo location for Cabernet Sauvignon grapes.
Yeah, I mean, this is the whole thing, I don't have the money to do marketing like Opus or Nickel or Mondavi or Screaming, and that other vineyard, the other bottle I showed you is the vineyard right next door to Screaming Eagle. I don't have that sort of money. All I have is truth.
Truth.
And it's the same location. Put it this way: when Kim Jong-un drops a nuclear bomb on California, we all run to the bunker, and you show up with your one bottle of very famous Napa branded wine, and I show up with my 3 6-packs of Hilary, who are they going to let in?
The guy with more bottles.
Exactly. And it's not that different. But here's something that people think I'm crazy about, which is, I am crazy about it because this is my passion, is I'm not saying I want to be, I could talk all day about this. I don't want to be a Napa winemaker going to Argentina or in Chile and stamping my California brand when I consult, you know, because I consult for 18 wineries down in Chile and Argentina. I don't want to Napify Cabernet from Chile. You have to respect the culture. It's the same thing being an Alexander Valley winemaker, going into Oakville and trying to stamp my Alexander Valley stamp on Oakville. But I have to go back. The one thing that sticks out of my mind is that this is a fruit product. And so we have to make these wines fruity. And so I want to make sure that when I make wine in Oakville, and I'm surrounded by nickel, and opus, I'm picking about 10 days before them. I want to have Cabernet be Cabernet. I don't want it to be disguised with alcohol and what we, you know, the Coca-Cola of the universe, you know. I'm not going to get the scores because, and God forbid if we ever, when was the last time you sat down and had dinner with Jim Lowby or Robert Parker? I mean, the point is, you've got your own palate. No one should tell you what to do or to drink. And so when I make Napa Valley, I want to respect the Napa Valley. I want to respect Oakville, but I also want to have that wine be lively. I want to have the alcohol low. I want to be able to have 2 glasses without falling over, you know. So that's sort of my mantra.
Awesome.
Even though
and so what is the Hilary retail for?
$55.60.
$55.60. Excellent. I'm going to share my screen here, guys, and I want to show everybody the awesome offering that Karen has put together.
Which I haven't seen. I need to.
So Nick, let me familiarize you with your offer. So,
well, Michael's on the screen. Michael, did you approve this?
You go to goldschmidtvineyards.com and you also can just directly email Karen at goldschmidtvineyards.com. You can use the code NYWineEvents. And Nick and team are offering 30% off any purchase, any bottle quantity. And if you order a case, and I don't see why you wouldn't order 3 bottles of each of these, you get free shipping, which is pretty amazing because shipping
I hope no one from New York is ordering.
So New Yorkers, you know that if you order even 2 bottles of wine, usually from California, your shipping costs can be 50, 60 plus bucks. So, and a case just shipping at UPS from California is about 65 bucks anyway. So this is a great deal, and I wanted to share it with everybody. We will follow up later with an email to everyone, letting them know as well. But just so you know, take advantage of this. 30% off any purchase, 12 bottles plus free shipping. Email Karen at goldschmidtvineyards.com. And so that is awesome. Let me see if we have any questions. I don't think we do right now. I think we've covered a lot of ground. But that being said, it has been such a pleasure, Nick, to have you on today. It's not every day that we get somebody with your experience and breadth of knowledge in the wine world. And we have an audience that is hungry and curious to learn. And I think that that's the thing that we can take away from our session. We want to do another one with you soon and pick a particular focus and learn even more. But I want to thank you for
no problem. But Sam, you know, the onus is on you, mate. You're good at this. You have the audience, you have the people, you have the reach, and our industry, our small family, I mean, you know what it's like. Our small family businesses need you guys, need people like you. We need to embrace you. We need to support you. And so this is just a magical, and for your outreach, I hope your people realize how good and powerful that you are. And here's a toast to you, Sam. Really appreciate having you on with me today. And just thank you for supporting our little industry. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Here's to you, Nick.
Cheers.
Thanks so much. And we will look forward to seeing you again soon. Be well and stay safe.
Thank you.